one dark horse that comes out and just shines, a Pierre Thomas, or who's going to be that next great guy that comes up and be the major contributor to the team that nobody had factored in to play. And the running back core, looks pretty deep, Barry. Tell us your thoughts how this is going to possibly shape up.
Well, obviously Mark Ingram's going to be your starter. I don't think there's any question about that. The biggest question for Ingram is going to be the same question that surrounds him every year. Is he going to stay healthy? He's never played a 16-game season thus far in his NFL career. I'm skeptical to say that he can do it this year. He may not, but he's never, been the player that he was at Alabama. And I always go back to that because this is a guy who won the Heisman Trophy. And, traditionally, running back, not always the case, but, you can remember, I know Coach remembers, growing up in the 70s, in the early 80s, the Heisman Trophy winner was usually a lock to be a superstar in the NFL.
George Rogers, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I can just sit here and rattle guys off the top of my head. George Rogers, who was actually a Saint, who was a Heisman Trophy winner. Earl Campbell was incredible. Archie Griffin, I'll go way back into the 70s, who was the last guy to win it twice back to back. But they didn't always turn out to be good pros. Archie Griffin being the prime example. I mean, Archie Griffin was this man. He played, I want to say, one or two good seasons for the Bengals, and then he was done. So it doesn't always translate over to the pros. And what we mentioned back earlier in the show was that college players don't always translate over well to the pros. It depends on the player. It depends on the individual player.
How do you see? Do you see?
Allude to about Michael Thomas? He's going to be a dynamic superstar.
Right.
You can just see it.
Right. Well, what about Spiller? Do you think he's going to be a major contributor in the backfield?
I was just about to get to the next tier, guys. Hard to say. Again, he's been dealing with injuries ever since he came into the pros. I mean, he was an All-American at Clemson. You see, when you watch Spiller, you see the talent just oozing off this guy. Here's a guy who was a track and field star in the state of Florida. He still to this day is the fastest guy in the history of Florida football. You know how good high school football is in Florida. It's probably the best in the nation. And he still is the record holder for track and field record. So, I mean, this guy is dynamic. He is a touchdown waiting to happen when the ball is in his hands. But he's just never been able to stay healthy. So if he can stay healthy, then yeah, I think he's only 28, 29. So if he can stay healthy, man, I mean, that's a wild card for the Saints that nobody's even thinking about because it's kind of been forgotten. But if C.J. Spiller is healthy and Sean Payton can figure a way to get him involved heavily into the offense and make him that scat back type of player that Sproles and Reggie Bush was before, oh man, you're talking about a whole different dynamic of the offense that essentially was non-existent last year. So it changes everything. So he'll be a key contributor, if he's healthy. If he's not, if he can't shake the injuries, then we'll just, we'll go back to the same type of utilization at running back that we saw last year, where you'll have Ingram as the power running back guy, the workhorse type of guy. You'll see Hightower basically spelling Spiller in the role that Kerry Robinson did have before he signed with the Jets. And to me, the wild card to watch is the kid that they got out of Cal, the 7th round pick, Daniel Lasco. Now, by all accounts, he's just going to be a special teams contributor in his first year. But if you go back and look at the film when he played at Cal, he's a fantastic running back. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a very underrated pick for a 7th round pick. how he'll factor in down the line into the future, that remains to be seen. But look, if Mark Ingram for any reason should falter, keep your eye on the Lasco kid. I mean, he reminds me personally of Ruben Mays. I know all of us old enough for even John probably old enough to remember Ruben Mays from the mid 1980s, and that's who he reminds me of. He's got a very similar running style to Ruben Mays, but what he does that Ruben Mays couldn't do is catch passes. He's a great catching passes out of the backfield. And I think one of the reasons the Saints drafted him is the screen game, because we all remember how good Pierre Thomas was with that screen pass. They like to utilize the screen pass in that offense. And when Pierre Thomas left, they pretty much have lost that capability to run the screen. And that's one thing that Lasco was outstanding at Cal was using the screen pass. So we'll see how they utilize it. Him being a rookie and being so far down the depth chart, he might not get much playing time. He might be more of a special teams guy, but he can play. And I think, this is my opinion, doesn't mean that they're going to do it. I might be completely off base with this, but I think if for some reason if Mark Ingram can't stay healthy, you'll see a lot of Hightower, and you'll see Lasco sneak in there. And if Lasco can do what he did at Cal, man, watch out.
So Marcus Murphy is on the bubble, guys.
Yeah, I know that's your guy. I know, I know that's your guy, and I just feel like he's on the bubble. I don't think he's a better running back than Lasco. So I think what Murphy's going to have to do is show that he can be the designated kick returner. Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, right now he still is. But watch out for a kid, and we didn't really touch on him because he's way down the wide receiver depth chart. Won't make it as a wide receiver. But Tommy Lee Lewis, he's 5'7", I think, and 160 pounds soaking wet. But this kid is a dynamic kick returner. He's a lot like Trendon Holiday that used to play for LSU. If you remember Trendon Holiday, he's built like him, and he's got the same speed as Trendon Holiday did. And he won't make the team as a wide receiver, but if Sean Payton's looking, as Coach was alluded to, they need somebody that could get you that extra 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 yards, whatever, on a return that gives you field. The NFL is so much predicated on field position. I mean, we've seen how many times that the Saints get stuck starting off on their own 15-yard line, whereas if they could have just advanced it up to the 25 to the 30 even, whatever, that 15 yards is the difference between you punting and kicking a field goal. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of times you're stuck punting, whereas if you'd had an extra 15, even 10 yards on the return, then maybe you could try a 55, if you got a kicker with the leg to do it, you could try a 55-yard kick inside the Superdome and get away with it. And field position is huge. And so, that's I think those are the two guys that you're going to see come down. We didn't really touch on it with the special team aspect of it, but those are the two guys I think you're going to see go head-to-head for that kick returner, punt kick returner spot is Tommy Lee Lewis and Marcus Murphy.
Yeah, and we forget about Cadet. Cadet is back there as well, and he's somebody that breathes trust.
Like a forgotten guy, but again, and he can do it. He's good at all of it. He's good catching passes out the backfield. He's actually a decent running back. So we use a traditional handoff type of guy at running back, and of course he can do special teams. So I mean he's kind of the forgotten guy there, and I almost would tell you, depending on how many running backs they keep, that if I had to rule if I had to pick the odd man out, so to speak, and I know I wrote an article on this a couple months back or weeks back, that Murphy, I think, would be the odd man out just because Cadet has the experience. He's the better back. He's probably the better pass catcher. So the only advantage Murphy would have would be as a return guy. So Sean Payton's going to predicate it on okay, I'm going to keep, or as far as 53-man roster cut down, it's all going to come down to who's more valuable. And if I'm picking between Marcus Murphy and Travaris Cadet, I'm going to take Cadet. So it's just, it's all about, I guess, when those final cuts come down, what it's going to come down to is value. Who's the more valuable player? Who can do more? Who can stand out on special teams and not just returning kicks, but going downfield and making a tackle, when you're kicking off. I mean, just little things. There's little things that wind up determining who gets to stay on the roster and who gets cut. And so, that those type of intangibles are the things to watch for.
Yeah, good stuff, Barry. Thank you. All right, guys, let's talk about this offensive line. Brendan, what are your thoughts there? And will we see a battle at guard with Lolito, or will the kid Landon Turner be a factor?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Landon Turner. With all the work that I do up there in North Carolina, I'm pretty familiar with Landon Turner. He's a big mauler. We talked about all the running backs right there a second ago. He is definitely a guy that if he gets some time up there at the guard position, he'll really open up some of the holes on the offensive line. But Lolito at the same time, and I think it was John who tweeted a couple things out during the year of Lolito really opening up holes in the run game. So I'm not sure what's really going to happen there. I think Pete is going to get that guard spot on the right side and have Zach Strief as the right tackle. But that's the position to watch, is that left guard. Who's going to get it? Can Landon Turner really make the difference there? Will they go with Lolito because of the experience that he has? But let's just be honest, guys. That whole offensive line, top to bottom, is a little bit of a mess. There's not a lot of depth. But the other guy you have to really consider, and I can't say his name to save my life, but it's Clemente, something along the lines of that, who came in and played some big time.
Yeah, Senio
Clemente, there we go. Really came in and played some serious time for the Saints last year. I think even started at left tackle the last game of the season. So there's three guys right there that could really cement themselves as the starter at the left guard position. But if you're asking me who's going to get the job right now before camp opens, before we see anything on the field, it's got to be Lolito just because of the experience that he has.
Okay, Coach, here's my question to you. Based upon some of the blocking schemes and how the Saints are needing to protect the aging but still fantastic guy in shape, Drew Brees, do you think the Saints have a better chance pushing the ball down the field, running with Lolito or Clemente or even this new kid?
Clemente ended minicamp as the starter at left guard and was getting a lot of reps at that position. I think that the Saints feel that he can be a starter in the league. Lolito so far has proven that he's an adequate backup and may not be good enough overall to be a consistent starter. Pete has got to get the job done at right guard. There's really not much alternative, and he did show some promise at the end of last year, and as much as we could see without pads during OTAs and minicamp. Zach Strief is solid at what he's doing. But we had him on our television show, Prep Recruiting Insider, and I asked him, because I noted 3 years ago that it looked like he was at the end of the road then, but then really came to camp in great shape and has been a steady performer in the upper half of the league the last 3 years. And he really changed his training regimen over that period of time and has stuck with it. So he's become one of the better right tackles in the league and has been able to physically hold up because of his training regimen. So Andrus Pete has got to prove his worth at the right guard position. Max Unger at center is a terrific player. We don't mention him enough because he is in the top third of the league as far as the center position is concerned. So that is solidified in Taron Armstead. Now there's somebody right there. When we sometimes we use the word